Hello and welcome back. I'm glad you're here. I'm really excited about this video because today we're doing a behind the scenes breakdown of a short film. The film is called Slideshow, written and directed by my good friend Jamison Braly. I'll be going through the film shot for shot and showing you exactly how it was lit, what camera gear was used, and the thought process behind some of the creative choices. And all the behind the scenes is a combination of different videos and photos everybody took on set. Now make sure you're in a comfy chair, get something to take notes with, and grab a snack. This video is going to be in depth to give you as much information as possible. I also recommend that you save this video so you can come back and use it as a reference later. Before we start, just so I don't have to repeat it on every single setup, the camera I used was the Zcam E2F6 in what I refer to as my cinema package. That includes a cage, side handle, 7-inch monitor, wireless transmission, just all the things. For glass, I used my set of Canon FD vintage lenses. This includes a 20, 28, 35, 50, and 85mm lens. Finally, you'll know what part I'm referring to when we get there, but after the lights go out in the film, every shot thereafter has a generous layer of haze, so keep that in mind as well. All right, so let's get into it. First things first, we had to control the natural light that was coming into the living room we were shooting in. So we decided to go with a tent over all 3 main windows. This would not only protect our gear from the predicted rain, but also give us total control over this window light. For the main window, we had an Amaran F22c with a 4x softbox, butted straight up against the window. And the light on the deck was an Intelitech Mega Light, which was a 4x panel. It's pushed up against the window in this picture here, but we ended up moving it about 5 feet back underneath our tent.
I get that, but I think it's so different from what
That brings us to our opening shot, which is this top down. This shot then cuts to a second one here, which is looking up at Janice, one of our main characters, and then cuts back down to the top down. I used the 28mm lens for both of these shots, and for this top down, we took 2 C-stands and secured the camera looking straight down at the table. This is probably one of the scariest things I've done with my camera recently, but to be fair, it was set up in a way that was extremely safe. Lighting for this was super simple. We just took some Duvetine and blacked out all the windows in the dining room. We then took an Amaran F22c with a single layer diffusion and added 1 additional layer of muslin on the front. For the shot looking up at Janice, we again used the F22c with that layer of muslin and placed it on camera left. There's also a 4x negative fill on camera right to increase contrast. And for the background, my gaffer had 2 RX7 RGB lights, which I'd never heard of, but they're these tiny small little panels. You'll see them used in basically every setup, so I'm definitely happy he brought them. Like a number of shots in this film, this one's cut back to several times. The director wanted this to be a wide symmetrical frame, sort of like Wes Anderson vibes. And so we went with the 20mm to make sure both lamps were in frame to add that symmetry.
And action. Honey, do you get the lights?
Our main light source was again the F22c with a single layer diffusion, and it was bounced off the ceiling on camera right. There was also an aperture B7C in each one of these lamps that you can see in frame. Now we have some dialogue between Roger, Kevin, and Sam, but in the frame we have Roger and Kevin as a 2-shot. This frame didn't need to be as wide as the couch 2-shot, and I didn't want the distortion of the wider lens, so I went with the 35mm. We used a single light to key both of our characters here, which was again the F22c, except this time it had the grid attached, and it was then bounced into a white foam board that was resting up against the wall. Lastly, the 3 track lights in the background you can see here, each had an aperture B7C in them. For this shot, the director wanted the point of view to be from the couch, so naturally, I put the camera on the couch, and then propped it up with a sandbag pointed up at Roger. The lens for this one was the 35mm, and I chose this focal length because I wanted to fill the frame with this fireplace, and again I didn't want the distortion of the 20mm for this one.
Okay, you squares, I present to you, ta-da! Photos from our trip to the Grand Canyon.
It really was far out.
The skull in the background, maybe a little bit of foreshadowing, I don't know, maybe, was lit with the Aperture Infinibar PB6. We also had the 4x floppy on camera right, And our main light source is the F22c with no diffusion, bouncing it into the corner of the ceiling on camera left. Then we cut to this high angle of Roger looking down at Kevin. The lens and lighting for this one were the exact same as the two shot with Roger and Kevin from before. Christian, light's good. In this first shot, I used a 50mm lens and had a tripod at about Roger's eye level. His key light is an RX7, that's just simply bouncing off the table. The window light is again the 300C that's underneath our tent, and the background are the B7Cs and the track lights. Then to raise the level a little more, we had that F22C, and it's bouncing into that white foam board on the wall.
Who wants coffee?
This is the first time as an audience we see that Janice is a little unhinged. So to lean into this, I grabbed the 20mm for that distorted look and stopped it down to about F4 to clean it up a little bit. The director wanted the camera to tilt up as she stepped into the doorframe, so I simply had the camera on sticks and did a quick tilt up as she stepped in. The light that's in the background here is motivated by a light that's on in the kitchen, and it was one of those RX7 panel lights. And if I'm not mistaken, it was high up on a light stand and pointed toward the back of Janice's head. The key light on Janice was the F22C with a single layer diffusion and grid attached. We then had it shooting into this white bounce board, but it was spilling a little too much onto the ceiling, so we took a 2x3 flag and used it as a topper on top of our F22C. Finally, the 4x floppy was on camera right to increase the contrast just a touch. The next shot here is a wide high angle showing the entire room as the slideshow presentation's going on. Now, because of how wide this shot is, we were limited to what we could do in terms of lighting. We had the F22C bouncing off the ceiling with a single layer of muslin on camera right. The kitchen back here still has that RX7 panel like before. This window light is the Intelitech 4x panel under our tent, and the projector light is now a real modern day projector. That's part of the reason we lost the beams of light that you'll see in the next shots coming up, but I think it still looks great, and the continuity error honestly doesn't bother me that much. It just haunts me in my sleep. Now, this is one of the several turning points in the film, and it's the first time we see Janice after the lights have turned off. The first couple times we see her, the shots are close-ups, and I use the 28mm lens. However, as the film progresses, her shots are still close-ups, but I switched to the 20mm lens. I mention this because 1, the lighting for the most part remains the same, and 2, even though the frame size remains the same, Janice gives the audience a very different feeling with the 20mm lens. So let me show you what I mean.
So majestic. Coffee, Samantha? Kevin, cream? Yes or no?
You can see just how much more unhinged Janice looks because of this wider angle.
How about it, Kevin? Isn't she a fox?
The camera has the 28mm lens, and to continue to give Roger that feeling of dominance, the camera is down low and tilted up at him. Lighting was surprisingly simple for this. It's just an F22C with a single layer diffusion, bouncing off the ceiling on camera right. There's also an RX7 panel, bouncing into foam board, tilted up at Kevin, which is his key light. This uplighting makes him appear a little more evil to the audience, which is exactly the goal for this. Next, we have this medium wide of Kevin. The lens here was the 50mm, and the camera was positioned so the light from the projector was hitting the lens just ever so slightly, giving us this little lens flare.
Now this is a picture from Yavapai Point. Yavapai is actually the name of an Indian tribe in Arizona.
You don't say.
We also got a couple close-ups of just Kevin with the 85mm on sticks. We do not. Okay, ready to calibrate? Yep. And just for a little bit of variety, we got a couple close-ups as well with the 50mm lens using the fly cam just to get a little bit of camera movement. Now, regardless, all of those had the same exact lighting setup, which is this right here. Okay, you're good. The moonlight hitting the plant wall in the background is an InfiniBar PB6, and it's pointed directly at the wall. Let's pump it up. We can walk it in if we have to.
You mean to walk it in and a little more front facing?
Yeah.
Those are great reactions, by the way, Tor.
Good.
Yeah. The RX7 is bouncing into the foam board once again, and we use that as our key.
We have a BTS for that. I'm a producer. Oh yeah, that's right. Keep forgetting.
There you go. Throw it in there.
Throw the card out.
All right, we can kill the haze.
And grab that one too. Turn that one on and use some with that one.
Wow, he's got some eye light there, some catch light,
Anyone who wants to pick it up.
which actually is might be coming from that.
For the close-ups of Sam here, I wanted to lean into her feeling uncomfortable.
Scene 2AF, take 1.
To do this, I used the 20mm lens and attached the camera to the fly cam. This was to both give me that distorted look, as well as a little bit of camera movement, and that was to contrast the eerie stillness of Janice's shots, which were all on sticks. For the most part, the lighting was the same as the 2-shot with Sam and Janice on the couch. The only adjustment we made was the F22c was walked in closer just to get a little more light. In these shots, we have close-ups of Roger showing the slideshow. This is when the audience begins to realize that Roger is also a little unhinged, just like his wife.
Oh, this is where they say is the best place on the rim to watch the sunset. You remember the sunset, right, Janice?
Now, I didn't want him to appear as creepy as Janice, so instead of the 20mm lens, I used the 28 here. In the film, we see this shot as a medium, like you see here, and we also see it as a close-up. The only thing that changed was the camera was physically moved closer toward our talent.
More views of the canyon rim. Once you see one of them, seen them all.
The blue moonlight in our background and ceiling is a combination of the Amaran F22c that's outside, as well as an RX7 panel, which is the kicker you see on the back of Kevin's neck here. Kevin's key light is a combination of 2 lights. The first is another RX7 panel that's being bounced up into his face, and the second is from the real projector slideshow we had on set, and part of it is bouncing off of the foam board, just about 50% of it.
He's so smart, isn't he?
Just like the earlier 2-shot, we are on sticks again, and we're using the 20mm lens. In this shot, we no longer needed the real projector because it wasn't in our frame, so we swapped it out for an Amaran 100XS and attached a snoot to the front to keep our narrow beam of light.
Booms in. You're good.
And I will start on action. Here's Janice in her new dress.
The F22c with the grid attached was our key light for both actresses, and it was placed right next to the projector screen as close as we can get it. We still had moonlight bouncing off of our plant wall, but because the 20mm is relatively slow, we needed a bigger light. My gaffer brought out the RX50 panel light, and it gave us just enough for what we needed to motivate that moonlight. Our next shot is very similar in almost every way to the earlier shot when Janice walks in saying, "Who wants coffee?"
Who wants cake?
We still use the 20mm lens, and the camera was in the same exact position because we did this back to back. The only thing that changed was our key light was now being motivated by the projector, so we had to change the position just a little bit. This gave us this super creepy uplighting on Janice, which is exactly what I was hoping for.
She wants to do. She's the director today.
Okay.
And action.
Who wants cake?
I love it. Thank you. Okay, cool.
That brings us to the film's climax, which is between Roger and Kevin.
And these are just some more photos from the canyon rim. Once you see one view, you've seen them all.
Okay, that's enough. Is this
I used the 35mm here, and it was wide open at f2.
Explain this.
For lighting, the InfiniBar PB6 was once again our moonlight on the back wall. The only adjustment here was we flagged off some of the light that was bouncing off onto the ceiling because it was a little too much and looked a little weird.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
They're all great, but that can be good. You just dun 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 dun. You know, in the edit.
Yeah, for sure.
Of all the shots in the film, this is easily my favorite. And really, it's one of my favorite shots that I've done in a short film so far.
They didn't even touch their coffee. I make such good coffee.
We really need to get you a different hobby.
I really love the idea of having these horns coming out from behind Janice's head. It seemed like a really fun payoff for the audience, and I think it really helped her character. Since we had Roger with the horns behind him earlier in the film, I wanted this shot to feel different, especially since it's approximately the same place with the same lighting.
Scene 2BR, take 6.
Camera rolling. Rolling. You set, Rob? Set.
Action.
They didn't even touch their coffee. You make such good coffee.
Cut.
That's the one. That was good.
First, to add to the unsettling feeling, I gave this frame a pretty hard Dutch angle. I also wanted to pull Janice away from the background, as well as highlight the horns behind her. The horns were lit with an Aperture Infinibar PB6, and this also gave us this nice hair light on Janice. And because we had just that one light back there, the light falls off really quickly from the horns, and it really draws your eye to the center of the frame and to her, which was kind of a happy accident, but I absolutely loved the way it turned out. Then the trusty old 4x floppy was on camera right, and our key is again the F22c with a single layer diffusion, and it's bouncing off the back wall behind the camera. And I seriously can't love this shot any more than I already do. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some value out of it. I really enjoyed making it, and the shoot was a fun one. I'm really proud of what we were able to walk away with, especially given our small crew and all the time constraints that we had. And if you want to check out the full film, I'll link it down in the comments so you can check it out there. As always, thank you so much for spending just a little bit of time with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.